terrifying.
So it looks off the offset, we've got a Cthulhu control-based Paladin deck. And actually, the inclusion of Stormcrack, that makes me think that this could be a mid-range control Shaman.
Yep, definitely, especially with the Unbound Elementals as well there. It's seen some success across ladder, so yeah, I mean, mid-range and face Shaman have just become absolutely amazing because of this card as well, the Sentinel.
The Eternal Sentinel.
Yeah, the Eternal Sentinel. It's like it's replaced Lava Shock. Basically, obviously, Lava Shock would get rid of your overload, but this puts minion on the board as well as doing that, so it's a great minion to have in your deck.
Yeah, and we'll try and go through what each of these cards actually do, because obviously you might not have seen some of them. So that's Disciple of Cthulhu, adds 2/2 to Cthulhu, also deals 2 damage to whatever targets, obviously a 2/1 as well.
The stats are pretty terrible for a 3-drop, but the damage it deals instantaneously is really good. The battle cry makes up for it.
I've seen people running it in decks that aren't even running Cthulhu, just because as a 3-drop it's quite solid. You get a body on board.
You get free slam.
Yeah,
without a draw. It's, I mean, just the removal alone on it is absolutely fantastic. But let's just mention the fact that we have a pretty hefty board starting to be built up here for Hello Leeroy. Consecrate is kind of going to ruin that. So I'm just going to go ahead and eat my words. But we've still got that Elemental on the board, so it can still continue to ramp here.
Interesting decision to take out the Totem Golem rather than the Elemental there, because obviously the Unbound Elemental can get extra damage because it does buff up if you play any Overload cards. But maybe he was just banking on there being not any Overload cards in the hand of Hello Leeroy.
Praying for no Doomhammer.
I'm kind of worried for Hello Leeroy at this point, though, because he's got Consecration Equality in hand. He's got a huge card advantage. This is Osha I'm speaking about. He's got a huge card advantage, and Hello Leeroy really needs to get some card draw. He has got Stormcrack, though, and that is an Overload card.
It certainly is, and he's easily going to be able to do that one. Totem comes out as well. And obviously the Totem will likely be for Thing from Below, so he can play that onto the board. I think it's called Thing from Below. I'm really nervous about names of cards.
Oh no, I mean, like, I don't think anyone's really expecting you to know all of the 100-odd cards that have just come out, but yeah, Thing from the Below, which gets buffed. Basically, you can play it for less every time that you
6 mana base, 5/5 taunt.
Yep.
Drops 1 mana for each.
So actually, we just saw Osha's, he's facing a pretty heavy board. He chose to go for Stampeding Kodo instead of a complete clear with Equality Consecration, and that has just actually straight up lost in the game.
It has bitten him right in the bottom, and wow, what a quick game!
And that's why I'm surprised that no one why he didn't ban Shaman, because it is so powerful now. It's gained those just 2 cards. That's all it needed, and it has really made
that
Shaman
was super quick.
That was probably the quickest game of the Premiership.
For what should have been basically a mid-range Shaman against a Control Paladin, it ended on turn 6.
I think that was turn 7.
Turn 7, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, well, that's how you make a statement in this series, and I mean,
one step closer as well to the playoffs.
Exactly.
So it's looking good for Hello Leeroy. That's a great start. I mean, he's decided to ban the Rogue. Who was it? Sorry, yeah, Osha decided to ban Hello Leeroy's Rogue. Obviously, we've been seeing Death Rattle Rogue become quite a thing at the moment.
Yeah, but probably the more successful and more popular Rogue is a form of Miracle Rogue.
Yep.
Using the new poisons that they get. And
it has Malagos as well. Some people are running Malagos in it as well.
The combos. When you're in ladder, you've got like a really nice board. You're like, yeah, this is going really well. And then suddenly the Rogue takes like a 10-minute turn where they're just playing spell after spell after spell on 0 mana, and they've got like a Gadgets and Auctioneer out. It's just I have nightmares about that.
I lost to a Miracle Rogue that was running Zilith the Shifter, or Zirith the Shifter, the 1 mana card.
Yeah.
And
it transforms into a different minion every turn it's in your hand.
Yeah, and he got Malagos.
See,
turn 6, he got Malagos.
I think it's Zerus the Shifter, and it's. I mean, some people are playing in their decks. Some people think it's terrible. I personally, I'm not a fan of the card. It looks cute. The artwork's incredible, and I love it.
I don't think it's amazing. I completely agree with you.
Let's quickly get into the game again, because it's starting Rogue, Druid, and Warlock remaining for Osha, and it's Druid and Warlock remaining for Hello Leeroy. It is obviously 1-0 to Hello Leeroy.
Ooh,
but it's going to be Druid versus Warlock for this matchup, and this looks an awful lot like that Beast Druid you were talking about.
It is that Beast Druid. I know that Hello Leeroy had been playing a lot of that. In fact, he actually gave me his deck list for me to practice with. So and this is a deck that I'd been trying to make work. It's kind of like a hybrid between Handlock, Demon Lock, and Cthulhu Warlock. It's this sort of new mashup. And you can see here a lot of Cthulhu decks coming through from Osha. He must really love to play that combo.
The important thing being the board clear that he's got, the Demon Wrath and the Shadow Flame in there, which will really deal with the board and as this Beast Druid focuses on gaining board control and then pushing face damage with, I think it runs 2 Savage Roars, those removals are going to be really important. I know that Hello Leeroy actually got Legend with this deck. He personally said to me, it's the most fun he's ever had reaching Legend. So he obviously enjoys playing this deck, and it'll be interesting to see how this one unfolds.
I think one thing as well to bear in mind with the Warlock, I'm just going to say this is a placeholder before we see more cards in the deck. It could be a Cthulhu / Reno lock. I've seen something similar on ladder. It was about rank 5, so it is possible to see that. And you kind of, it's basically like an old Reno deck, get rid of the worst cards and just replace them with Cthulhu cards. Yeah,
that strikes me as odd because you realistically want to give yourself as much opportunity to buff your Cthulhu with multiple cards as possible. So you're kind of limiting how much you can do with Cthulhu at this point. But given that we haven't seen a copy of any card yet, you could be down the right kind of track.
I mean, it gives a win condition to Reno Lock. I mean, Reno Lock and Reno decks in general sometimes struggle to finish the game despite healing up. You would still lose against aggressive decks in some cases. So having that Cthulhu to kind of just burst some damage right at the end can really make a difference.
So I'd say that Hello Leeroy is in a really good position right now. He's got a good taunt up. He's got 5 damage minion on board. It's very difficult for Osha to clear, and he's got Nourish in hand. So he could burst through those cards and use Nourish to refill his hand. And if he faces a giant taunt, which could happen with something like Defender of Argus, he's got that Black Knight.
I think the big thing is Savage Roar off the top will do a lot of damage, and he's got the Violet Teacher as well to start spawning some 1/1s if he gets any spell. But I think just Savage Combatant here, and
Savage
Hero
Combatant
Power as
go
well.
face. Or kill. Sorry, Savage Combatant kill the 4/3 and then just go face.
And then just go face. And it's, like you said, it's such a commanding board position to be in. And unless we see a Reno come off the top, it's looking pretty bad for Osha.
But, I mean, this is what I love about this current meta. I know we're 2 days into the meta, so it's hard to really call what the meta is. There's Cthulhu for later. He'll keep that one in his back pocket. But in fact, there you go. That's just going to be the second game already, deciding that that board is just too much to deal with, not really a way of getting around that, and just giving up.
Hello Leeroy saying, you casters work too hard. I want to give you a bit of extra time for a break, because he's winning these games within 5 minutes.
He's just sailing through. He's just kind of sat back. He's like, yeah, I've got this easy.
Osha has brought heavy control decks here, and actually the decks that Hello Leeroy has brought are bordering on that mid-range kind of area, which classically will always do very well against control decks because they always provide those mid-game threats which are very hard to deal with. Yeah. We know that Shaman was definitely mid-range, and he was able to build huge boards up. That Druid, a little bit more aggro, but it has a lot of mid-range minions as well, and does classically do quite well. And into the Warlock, that's probably one of its better matchups.
Well, it's like a token Druid,
exactly,
isn't it, basically?
Yeah.
So it's about controlling board. It's just too strong. We did say earlier that Osha might bring these decks that are a little bit more experimentative, and kind of, it does look like that has kind of happened, because he's definitely not brought decks that are on meta as such right now. You
can see the difference between Hello Leeroy has brought decks that are quite solidified in terms of most people are saying that they are good. Essentially, after 2 days of opinions, the decks that Hello Leeroy have bought are very popular. Whereas Osha has brought decks that have said, do you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I want to make something new. I want to try and get some crazy combos off. And he looks like he's brought those big Cthulhu decks as well, because you want to get to that turn 10, throw that Cthulhu down and see the magic happen.
And when it happens, it's absolutely glorious.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time just wins you the game on the spot. Especially if you have board control when you play like a 15-15 Cthulhu, you just win the game on the spot.
One of my favorite matchups is the new Cthulhu like kind of control warrior mirror. And it's just like who drops Cthulhu first and who's going to have the execute in hand, and it's just unreal. And then there's also that card, I can't remember the name. Doomcaller, which also revives it as well, which personally, Doomcaller I don't think is that great a card, but in that mirror it is absolutely massive.
I actually think Doomcaller's okay. It's an 8 mana 7/9.
I think even if you don't use the revive effect, it's still good. Like you still get 2/2 on your Cthulhu. You still get a massive minion on the board. So I actually think it's actually very good card to run if you're going to be running a late game.
I think he's greedy.
I think one copy of Doomcaller in a Cthulhu deck, especially if you're a late game control deck, any Cthulhu deck, one copy of Doomcaller is just good.
I think currently, right now, it's good. I think as the meta kind of develops and we might see things like Big Game Hunter come back in, I think then you might get punished for running it.
I think the only 2 decks we'll see Big Game Hunter used more more regularly, and it'll be a ramp Cthulhu Druid and control Cthulhu Warrior or something like that, because they have that mana to spare for BGH. Most decks don't have that mana to spare. The only other deck that I like of Cthulhu is Priest deck, which we hopefully might see today at some point.
We may well, but it's going to be Warlock here is the final deck for Hello Leeroy, and it looks like he's going to be up against the Warrior of Osha. So I'm curious to see
like
what
a Dragon Warrior.
Yeah.
Like. And this will be the Zoolock as well that I spoke of earlier. Darkshire Councilman really really buffing Zoo, actually. I mean, Zoo's not really lost that much. It lost... well, what did it lose? I'm trying to think. Knife Juggler got nerfed.
It lost Haunted Creeper.
It lost Haunted Creeper, of course. Knife Juggler got nerfed, but it's still seeing play because even with its 2/2 body, its juggles are so important.
Lost Nerubian Egg.
Yeah, it obviously lost.
It lost some of the earlier minions, but actually in general it's done okay.
It seems like Zoo's gone back to what it used to be with the 2 Doom Guards. We've seen people running them. Obviously, Doom Guards kind of fell out of the meta after a while. But now we're seeing 2 being included as well as 1
The
Sea
issue
Giant.
with Doom Guards, because of the way that Zoo was, is that you really never wanted to discard any of your cards because everything was so useful. Whereas now you're going back to playing minions, which actually if you discarded, you probably wouldn't be too upset about them going.
It's because there's so many one drops as well. You'll often find yourself on turn 6, you've already got Doom Guard in hand, you're then drawing a card which is a 1-drop anyway, and you get to play that 1-drop and then just play the Doom Guard for free.
I find that regular Control Warrior right now is actually in a bit of a nerf state, because without Deathbite, you really are relying on 2 cards in your entire deck to get you through an aggro scenario.
There is the Darkshire Councilman, the Zoo MVP that I like. You personally, Kin, and you're not too sure on it, but...
I think it's good, but I haven't played with it much yet. See, I haven't actually managed to play enough of this.
I think it's full on broken. I really do. I mean, I was laddering with Zoo, and it was unreal that people just really struggled to respond. I mean, I've not seen it up against a Dragon Warrior, so I mean, interested to see how this one goes.
So now we've got quite an interesting turn, because you've got enough, I was about to say enough mana to play the Councilman, and he is going to go for that as well as an Abusive Sergeant. So that's going to give him an option to take
The interesting fact is the Imgang boss spawning the 1/1s also buffs.
This is what I was
I
about
didn't
to ask.
realise that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They also run Possessed Villager, which is obviously the 1/1 when it dies, it spawns another 1/1, which of course also buffs it. So that's what makes it so strong.
I didn't realise that. I actually thought it was when you had specifically had to play a minion from hand. That actually makes it so much better. What the hell? That's an amazing card.
And already this board is looking pretty good. I mean, Osha's dropping taunts left, right, and centre to try and stop this barrage.
Defender of Argus between the Villager and the Imp Gang boss, hit in with Flame Imp and Imp Gang boss.
If you
maybe?
Argus to between those two, and then you play a
you
1
leave
mana,
yourself,
then you've got a 6 mana Darkshire Councilman that can just run into this.
You are leaving it exposed to getting executed though, straight from something like a weapon.
But realistically, are you that worried about that
No.
specifically getting executed? It means that you keep the rest of your board alive and you can just deal so much damage. Looks
So
like
he was in. He actually kind of didn't count there. The Darkshire Councilman did go up to 6. He could have just traded without using one of his other minions, but that's fine. His board is still looking absolutely disgusting. And there is a weapon and there's a bash and an execute, but I don't think this is going to be
hit
enough.
the Councilman with the bash?
Good question. He's just
Executing
going to
it.
execute it instead.
Okay.
There you go, answered.
I was not sure about that, but yeah, that works out in the end with the execute coming
Power
out.
ramming off the top is not quite lethal.
6, 10. No, he's 2 off. Flame Juggler, 1
Flame
off.
Juggler makes it 1 off, so he can tap here.
Yeah, tap for
For
something.
an Abusive Sergeant, perhaps, if he's got another one. Void Walker will not do it. But, I mean, there is no coming back for
what's
this.
the
Unless
point-
there's a Brawl, but even a Brawl, I don't think a Brawl will save you now.
What's the point of Injured Cavaldier in this deck?
I've not seen it.
Oh no, that was picked up from Dark Peddler, right?
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
I was going to say I didn't think that Injured Cavaldier would have been running in this deck.
With just the Armor Smith coming off, that will be 3-0 to Hello Leeroy. That will put him into the playoff finals.
Yeah.
With a nice, easy 3-0 sweep.
What a way to do